They messed with my money, so I fined them back. The spreadsheet blurred in front of me. Rows and rows of numbers, each meticulously checked, cross-referenced, and verified. Except for the ones for marketing. Those were a goddamn mess. I was Sarah, senior accountant at Everglow, and my life revolved around accuracy. Numbers were my comfort, my truth. But Mr. Henderson, VP of Marketing, seemed to exist in a reality where numbers were suggestions. His expense reports were legendary. 5-star hotels when perfectly adequate 3-star options existed, client entertainment that suspiciously coincided with major sporting events, and enough research and development dinners to feed a small army. It started small. A few questionable receipts here and there. I'd flag them, send them back, and he'd sigh dramatically, resubmit with slightly altered details, and expect me to cave. I didn't. "Sarah, darling," he'd purr, leaning against my doorway, his cologne a suffocating cloud. "Are we really going to quibble over a few measly dollars when I'm bringing in millions?" "Those measly dollars add up, Mr. Henderson," I'd reply, my voice deliberately even. "And they need to be properly documented." Brenda, my work wife and fellow accountant, would roll her eyes from her desk. "He's a lost cause, Sarah. Just let it go." "I can't," I'd mutter. "It's unethical." "And career-limiting," Brenda would add more pointedly. She wasn't wrong. Henderson was powerful. Connected. He golfed with the CEO, for crying out loud. I was an accountant. Expendable. But I couldn't shake the feeling that letting him get away with it was a slippery slope. One questionable expense report became 10, then 100. Where did it end? The problem wasn't just the money, it was the principle. A year ago, I'd been burned badly by a financial scam, and the resulting stress had cost me dearly. Now, seeing blatant misuse of company funds triggered something deep inside me. I felt a responsibility to protect the integrity of Everglow, even if no one else seemed to care. One afternoon, David, the intern, stopped by my desk, looking flustered. "Ms. Miller," he said, fidgeting with his glasses, "I was helping Mr. Henderson with some reports, and, well, he told me to recategorize some travel expenses as market research." My blood ran cold. He was actively falsifying records, and involving an intern. "David," I said slowly, "did you save any of those original documents?" He nodded, his eyes wide with concern. "Yes, I made copies before I changed them, just in case." "Good," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Very good." That night, after a bottle of cheap wine and several pep talks from Brenda over the phone, I decided I couldn't just keep playing defense. I needed to go on the offensive. I spent the next few weeks buried in the company's financial regulations, a document so dry it could suck the moisture out of the Sahara. But I was looking for something specific. A loophole, a technicality, anything I could use to fight back. And then I found it. Buried deep in Section 4, Paragraph 12, Subsection C, a clause that stated, departments exceeding their allocated budget or consistently submitting unsubstantiated expense claims will be subject to a financial penalty, to be determined by the accounting department. The language was vague. Financial penalty could mean anything. And it hadn't been enforced in years, maybe ever. But it was there. A weapon, gathering dust in the corporate archives, just waiting to be wielded. I started meticulously documenting every instance of Henderson's fraudulent spending. Every inflated hotel bill, every questionable dinner receipt, every market research expense that smelled suspiciously like a vacation. I built a case, brick by painstaking brick. Then, I did something bold. I implemented the penalty clause. I calculated the exact amount of unsubstantiated expenses submitted by the marketing department over the past quarter, and I deducted that amount, plus a processing fee because, why not, from their upcoming budget. The impact was immediate. The screams echoed through the office. Henderson stormed into my cubicle, his face red, veins throbbing in his forehead. "What the hell is this, Sarah?" he roared, waving a printed copy of the revised budget. "You can't just take money out of my budget." According to Section 4, Paragraph 12, Subsection C. "I can," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. The marketing department has consistently exceeded its allocated budget and submitted unsubstantiated expense claims. Therefore, a financial penalty has been applied. He sputtered, his face contorting in disbelief. You actually did it? I did, I said, meeting his gaze. And I have the documentation to back it up. He tried to intimidate me, to threaten me with my job. He even tried to charm me, his tone shifting from rage to wheedling in a matter of seconds. But I stood my ground. The next few days were a whirlwind of meetings with HR, finance executives, and even the CEO. Henderson painted me as a rogue employee, a disruptive force, a woman obsessed with nitpicking over insignificant details. Mrs. Davis from HR, with her practiced smile and soothing voice, tried to mediate. "Sarah, I understand your concerns," she said, "but perhaps there's a more collaborative way to address this issue?" "Collaboration is difficult when one party is actively engaging in fraud," I replied, my voice tight. The pressure was immense. I was ostracized by some, pitied by others. Brenda kept checking in, her support unwavering, but even she looked worried. "Are you sure this is worth it, Sarah? You could lose everything." But I couldn't back down. Not now. I'd come too far. The issue escalated to binding arbitration. A neutral third party would review the evidence and make a final decision. It was my word against Henderson's, backed by a stack of receipts and a dusty clause in the company's financial regulations. The arbitration hearing was held in a sterile, windowless room. Henderson, flanked by his lawyer, oozed confidence. He presented himself as a visionary leader, a dynamic force who needed flexibility to achieve results. I, on the other hand, was portrayed as a rigid, inflexible bureaucrat, stifling innovation with my obsessive attention to detail. David was called as a witness. He was clearly uncomfortable, his face pale, his voice barely above a whisper. But he told the truth. He confirmed that Henderson had instructed him to recategorize expenses. He admitted that he knew it was wrong. Mrs. Davis testified about the importance of maintaining departmental harmony and avoiding unnecessary conflict. She subtly implied that my actions had created a hostile work environment. Then, it was my turn. I presented my evidence, methodically and calmly. I showed the arbitrator the inflated hotel bills, the questionable dinner receipts, the market research expenses that had nothing to do with market research. I cited the company's financial regulations, emphasizing the importance of accountability and transparency. I spoke about my own personal experience with financial fraud, how it had affected my life, and how it had fueled my determination to prevent it from happening at Everglow. I finished my presentation, my voice hoarse, my heart pounding. I had done everything I could. The arbitrator adjourned the hearing and said he would issue his decision within a week. The wait was agonizing. Every email, every phone call, every hallway conversation felt like a judgment. I barely slept, tossing and turning, replaying the hearing in my mind, second-guessing every word I had spoken. Finally, the decision arrived. The arbitrator ruled in my favor. He acknowledged the validity of the penalties I had imposed on the marketing department and upheld the company's financial regulations. He found that Henderson's expense reports were indeed unsubstantiated and that his actions had violated company policy. I had won. The news spread like wildfire through Everglow. Henderson was publicly humiliated. He was forced to issue a formal apology to the accounting department. His responsibilities were reduced. His star had fallen. But my victory came at a cost. I became known as a troublemaker, a whistleblower, a woman who couldn't be trusted to play the corporate game. I was passed over for promotions. My colleagues avoided me in the hallways. I was effectively blacklisted. Brenda congratulated me, but her voice was subdued. "I'm proud of you, Sarah," she said, "but I'm also worried. You've made some powerful enemies." She was right. I had. One evening, I sat alone in my apartment, staring out the window at the city lights. I felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that I had done the right thing. But I also felt a twinge of regret. I had won the battle, but I had lost the war. My career at Everglow was effectively over. Maybe it was time to find a new battlefield, a place where integrity was valued, not punished. A place where numbers meant something more than just a way to justify extravagant spending. Maybe, just maybe, a place where I could actually make a difference. The thought flickered in my mind, a tiny spark of hope in the gathering darkness. And maybe I would, tomorrow.